the flip cam killer. It's the Kodak Zi8, and it's their 1080p HD little portable camera unit. It looks and feels about the size of a BlackBerry, like almost exactly like the size of a BlackBerry Bold. It has a 2.5-inch color LCD screen. Like I mentioned, it shoots in 1080p. It also shoots in 720p at 60 frames per second and 720p at 30 frames per second, and also a VGA mode. If you're curious to see what the different modes look like, I'll include some test shots I did at the end of the video. It's pretty interesting results. I'm going to just say, in summary, 720p at 60 frames per second looks amazing with this camera. The 1080p, 30 frames per second, looks a little shaky, a little jittery. Playing with digital image stabilization, it does different things, but it still isn't. With it on, with digital image stabilization on, it does help with some of the shakiness, but then it kind of adds like a blurry effect to the picture. So I actually don't really prefer the digital image stabilization that's built into this camera. But one of the problems with these little portable cameras, and that's not anything specific to the Kodak, it's just the physics of the unit, is you get such a small, flat lens that has such a high resolution in this kind of compact environment. Any movement at all, just the natural movement of your hand as you hold it still, will cause issues with it'll cause shaking in the picture. So there's probably a pretty good place for the digital image stabilization. I'll include this in the video right now. I'm holding it pretty steady, and I have digital stabilization turned off, so you'll be able to see here in the video how this looks. So some of the highlights about this camera is it comes pretty well equipped. Aside from the different resolution options, which I think are really great, it has an SD slot, so you can swap in SD cards. It does come with 128 megabytes of built-in storage, but you're not going to get very far on that. It goes up to 32 gigabytes for the SD card, so that's pretty good. It has like all of these cameras do in this genre, it has a little flip-out USB dongle, so you can connect it right to your computer. It just flips right out there, and you plug right in, and then it mounts on the computer as a USB storage device. So just so as long as you can mount USB devices, you can get the files off this camera. And in Windows machines, it has a software to import, and then on the Macs, it works transparently with iPhoto. And then Linux folks, any photo program that detects a digital camera connection will detect this as a digital camera, and it'll import those photos. It records in H.264 in a QuickTime container. So the way that their profile is set up for their H.264 recording is it will immediately work uploading to YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, all those different video sites. They're all going to be compatible directly with the video that this thing produces. So you can literally take it off this camera and start uploading. You don't have to run it through any kind of encoder or anything like that. That's a nice feature for sure if you want to do that. There's no built-in wireless. You can't send directly from the device. I got to imagine, though, in the future that's coming. The battery is also replaceable. The front case comes off, and you can pop in a new battery or a replacement battery. It has also a DC line in, so you can supply constant power to it. So you could hook it up with, say, a tripod mount. This little tripod mini mount here is pretty cool. It's a little Vanguard unit, and it just kind of goes out like this, and then there's a little tripod mount hole in the bottom of this guy, and it screws on there, and or on a regular size, it's a standard tripod mount hole, so any tripod you could put this guy on. Then you could bring in the constant DC power, and you could have yourself a continuous runtime for as long as your SD card will have storage for. It also works as a 5 megapixel still cam, so and that you could probably get a little mileage out of the built-in 128 megabytes. Here's the feature, though, why I bought this thing. Why I really bought this thing. Built-in mic-in jack. On the side of this bad boy, you have a standard 1/4 quarter stereo jack, and it just plugs right in, and you can use, now this is kind of a ridiculous setup, right, but boy, sorry, my mic keeps coming off. I just kind of threw it on there, and now my cord's pulling on it. So you can plug a mic directly into this guy and get stereo sound. It has a built-in microphone, but it's only mono, and it's not very good. It's just right next to the lens. Whereas something like this guy is a shotgun mic. It's going to have pretty good sound quality. Or I could plug this wireless mic into it if I wanted to be able to have my wireless Mac mic pack on, and I could walk around, say, like a trade show, or I'm going to PAX next week. I'll probably actually use this at PAX with this microphone. I'm going to get a little stand mount that has a tripod mount on one end, and then a shoe mount, that's what these little mounts are called, on a cold shoe mount on the other end, and I'm going to be able to walk around and look like Mr. Cool Guy here with my little HD camera and this. I will be shooting in the 720p 60 frames per second format because I think that looks pretty good. Just to kind of wrap up, to touch on the low light performance, it's not so great. I'm not super impressed with the low light performance. The truth is, none of these really accomplish great low light performance. Some of them do better than other. I have another Kodak series. It's a 720p camera that, like, I recorded a behind the scenes tour of this studio and I used that camera to do that. It has better low light performance. Ironically, I would say the low light performance of this Kodak Zi8 is on par with the Canon HV20 that I'm shooting this video with. The Canon doesn't have very good low light either. It's just something that consumer grade cameras don't do very well. And this isn't really an exception. But all in all, I frickin' love this camera. It has a fixed focus, so that's one thing to remember. I guess it has facial recognition, like, so it can focus on faces, but since it's fixed focus, I got to imagine it's either some sort of digital focus they're applying or it's just for exposure, because it does have exposure control. So it is fixed focus. It works best at like 3.5 feet and beyond. It's best picture quality. If you get really up close, like 15 inches, you can flip it in. There's a little switch on the top, and you can flip it into macro mode, and then it has a better up close. And then when you go, but that only works up close so far. And then if you step back, you have to flip it back into landscape mode. The interface in the menu is pretty good. You can play back and delete right here from the camera. They use symbols that you kind of have to assume what they mean. They're all pretty explanatory, and the manual is pretty good. One last thing to touch on, it has HDMI out, and it comes with the HDMI cable. It also will do regular RCA video out, so if you want to hook it up to a standard def TV, you can do that, or you can hook it up directly to an HD TV. The HDMI port is not live. You will not be able to hook it up to an HDMI capture card and capture live off this guy, but you can capture the recorded content through the HDMI capture. I don't know why you'd want to do that, because you could also just plug it in and grab the H.264 files. I was kind of hoping that the HDMI would be live, because that would be pretty amazing to be able to capture live HDMI off this thing, but probably not really realistic. The overall, I think I paid $180 for the Kodak Zi8. I love it. It definitely kills everything else in this space on the market. For $180, you get a 1080p camera, and if you were to mount this thing on a tripod and keep it steady, the 1080p picture would be usable. Because I'm probably always going to use it when I'm moving, I'm going to shoot in the 720p 60 frames per second. To get 60 frames per second on a device like this is kind of phenomenal. Actually, it's incredibly phenomenal. And that's how I'm going to shoot. The picture looks nearly cinematic, and I'm not exaggerating there. So really happy with it. The mic in jack plus a tripod mount, crazy awesome. B-roll camera, whatever I need it to be, it's gonna work for me. I love it. It's portable. It's small. It gets about 90 minutes on the battery, but being able to replace the battery means pop it in. I'm good to go with another one. Not a problem. I've already ordered my second battery, so that way when I'm at PAX, I can swap and keep recording, so I can get every little bit of detail of Star Trek Online on camera, even though I'm probably not supposed to. Something like that. Anyways, if you have any questions about the Kodak Zi8, you can hit me up on Twitter. I'm twitter.com/ChrisLAS. If you think you'd like to buy the Kodak Zi8, I'll link to where I bought it, which is on Amazon, with my affiliate link. So that way, if you buy it through that link, I get like a tiny percentage of the purchase. It doesn't cost you anything more, but it'd be a nice way to support these kinds of reviews. And Amazon's a pretty good place to buy from. Anyways, so probably we'll get there. Probably a good place to get it anyways, because it's not in stores, I don't think, yet. All right, well, that wraps up this quick look at kind of quick look at the Kodak Zi8. I really like this camera. I definitely recommend it. I declare the flip camera is dead. Dead.